we are looking at making tax digital today. So this is what we're going to cover. We're going to look at who is actually going to be affected by making tax digital, because not everyone will be from next year. There's a sort of a delayed sort of rollout approach to this from HMRC. So we'll look at that. We're also going to make sure that we look at the steps that you can take now to get your business ready. Nobody wants a last minute rush, quite frankly. You guys will be busy. You've got your own businesses, you've got your own lives to look after. You've probably got other commitments, pets, family, children, the works. So we need to make this as easy and seamless, and thereby being able to start a few bits now is going to make it 10 times easier come next year. But also, I want to make sure that you understand the practical impacts for you as sole trader businesses and landlords that are going to be affected. And then, obviously, because we're doing this as Tax Assist, I just want to obviously spell out how at Tax Assist we help our clients with this, and we're going to help our clients with this when it comes in. You know, because we appreciate that again, someone else to help guide you through this transition, this new process is going to make your life that much easier. So I just want to explain what we can do. Now, before we get stuck into the detail, as they say, with the chat box, I would encourage you, if you've got questions, pop them in there. Okay, I will leave a session at the end, a bit of time at the end, just to look through and see if there's any questions that I can answer now, live on screen, as they say. Equally, if for whatever reason we run out of time, I will obviously take those back, and we'll see if we can share anonymously some of those Q&A on our website so that you can still get the benefit of some of that feedback. And I am also delighted to say that we will be looking to do more of these types of webinars on the lead up, maybe going into things in a little bit more detail. So do keep your eyes and ears peeled, especially on our website, for anything else that we may be delivering. So, what is making tax digital for income tax? So, as we all know, our lovely HM Revenue and Customs comes up with these systems with a view to making things easier. Okay, that's what they try and do. We all know they don't always get it right, bless their cottons, but they are trying. Now, again, the fundamental behind this is the clue is in the title, making tax digital. All right, so if you break that down, they are trying to digitize the process. They want less human intervention. All right, because again, the easier everything is in a digital format, the seamlessly things can be uploaded, they can move through the relevant platforms, get to HMRC, hopefully also less mistakes and errors along the way if possible. And again, it's also to do with making it real time. So just taking it back a little bit, how the current tax system works. For those of you that are already completing tax returns, you will understand this. For those of you that are still quite new, as a very brief recap, what happens is, so for the tax year, which runs from the 6th of April to the following 5th of April, you then have from basically that 5th of April when the tax year finishes to the following 31st of January to submit your tax return and pay your tax bill. Okay. Now, obviously, you are paying tax out of their next year's money because you're already in that next tax year, if that makes sense. So you're not actually aligning things with the tax year in which it happens. And also, because you've got that delay in when you then complete your tax return, I know as well as probably some of you out there that can relate to this, you may not even think about completing your tax return until December, January. So the deadline's fast approaching. So up until that point, you may not have any idea about what your tax liability is going to be. So by the time you've then, you know, whether you've worked it out yourself on HMRC's website, you've got an accountant that's told you your tax liability, or you've worked it out yourself, then obviously you're potentially finding that out quite late. And then you're suddenly like, oh, I've actually got to pay this. Where am I going to get this money from? So it can put you in a bit of a pickle. Okay, especially when it comes to cash flow. So what this system is doing is trying to bring it into real time. Okay, so they want the submissions in the actual year. And the whole idea is it overall, it should smooth out the process. So you're not having to do everything in one hit at one point in the year. You are spreading out your work evenly, i.e. through quarters, which we'll come on to, So hopefully it makes it more seamless, a bit easier, not as much of a burden. You've got to do it all in one hit at the end of the year. Okay, so it does have, its benefits to it. And I will explain a few more about those because I know it's not always easy to understand or see those benefits initially because we think it's just okay, we're making HMRC's life a little bit easier, which we are, let's not deny it. But there are actual benefits to you guys as well from your point of view, running your businesses, etc. So, why is it important? Now, the first and foremost, this is something that's brought in, and funnily enough, it's going to be a legal requirement. So, like I said, there is no get out of jail free card here. There's no, oh, I just don't want to do that. I'm not going to do it. Because unfortunately, if you do take that mantra with it, you will find yourself in a point where, unfortunately, as anything with HMRC, if you don't do what you should do by the dates and times you should, there are consequences, normally in the form of a financial penalty. All right, so you do need to tackle this head on. You can't avoid it. Okay, there will be penalties for late submissions. And there will be fines and interest charged on late payments. I mean, that exists now, and I will come on to that because the payment side isn't actually changing at the moment. Okay. And potentially, if you're non-compliant, you are going to be put under the spotlight by HMRC because they will find you and they will want to make sure that you then subsequently comply. Okay, so you will be put under the spotlight, as we call it, and quite frankly, none of us want to be under HMRC spotlight if we can help it. Okay, so who is actually going to be affected? So it is actually only focused on sole trader businesses and landlords. All right, nicely wrapped up. So if you're a landlord, you've got one property, you could have 10 properties. You could own them wholly yourself. You could own them joint with someone else. Doesn't matter. You potentially are going to be caught by MTD. And also sole trader businesses. Okay, you potentially are also going to be caught as well. Okay, now you'll see here that April 2026, so next April, vastly approaching as time flies, unfortunately, as we get older, in a blink of an eye and a year is gone. Okay, so from April next year, it's combined income from these sources. When they're over 50,000, you are going to have to comply with MTD. Okay, this is not looking at any other income other than income from those sources. So sole trader businesses and landlords. Okay, so if you've got two sole trade businesses, you will obviously add them together. If you've got a sole trade business and you've got a property, you will add them together. But if you've got any other income, okay, you don't worry about it. So I can just briefly see a question. It's a nice simple one. So if you've got a job, a salary, and it's paying you over X amount, you don't worry about that figure. You're only looking at what you're getting. So combined income, so turnover from your property and your self-employed businesses. They're the only two that you're looking at when it comes to these totals. All right, so it's gross. Okay, it's top line figures. Okay, so it's looking at income. All right, so not profit or anything like that, income. Okay, so if it's combined and it's over 50,000, you are going to have to comply from next April. If it's not over 50,000, so but you're over 30,000, then you're not going to have to worry about MTD until April 2027. And then it again gets reduced. So when the income combined is over 20,000, then you're not going to have to worry about MTD until April 2028. All right. Now, I don't know if that's the end of the story and there's no one else who's going to be affected because we all know HMRC bring out other rules as we go. It could be that that threshold gets slashed again in the future, but we don't know. Nothing's been said about that yet. So, we'll just have to keep our eyes and ears peeled. And obviously we will keep you guys all updated through our website, etc. So how does it actually affect you? What does this whole new system boil down to? What are we actually going to have to do? Okay. Now, you will have heard this. If you've heard of MTD, you probably will have heard the phrase quarterly reporting. All right. So wonderfully, it's not monthly. Okay. Now, don't quote me on that because in 10, 20 years time, who knows? But right now, and for the foreseeable coming years, it is going to be quarterly. Okay. So What you will see on here is 4 quarterly submissions throughout the tax year are going to have to be submitted. Okay, but you only will report your business's income. So income from self-employed businesses or sole trader businesses, should I say, or income from you as a landlord, okay, that you own property, and any costs, expenses will need to be reported. That's it. Okay, you don't worry about, income. If you've got income from a salary, you've got bank interest, you've got this, that, and the other. You don't worry about disclosing any of that in these quarterly submissions. You are only reporting your sole trade income and expenditures or your landlord income and expenditures. All right. However, you'll see there on my first bullet point, if you have multiple trades, sole trade businesses, you do have to do a submission for every single trade. All right. So if you've got two sole trade businesses, you might be, I'm just going to pick two things out of a hat here, excuse me. You've got a plumbing business and you've got electrician's business. Sorry there. Because if they're both kept separately as separate trades, separate businesses, you will then have to do 2 submissions every quarter. Okay, and in those submissions, you'll be submitting the income and the expenses. Okay, the ins and outs. All right. Landlords of jointly held property can actually choose to not disclose their share of expenses on the quarterly submissions. Okay, just because if you jointly own a property and you might not know exactly how things are going to be split, etc., and it can get a bit messy and a bit fiddly, they still have to report their income. Okay, but you can choose not to disclose your share of expenses just in the quarterly submissions. You will have to at the year end, which I'll come on to. All right. Now, so each quarter you are going to have to submit a digital upload of this information to HMRC. But also, because at the moment in the current tax return, you submit all your other income, bank interest received, all these other sources. And obviously, what I've just said is in the quarterly reporting, we don't submit any of that. Okay, we don't worry about that in the quarterlies. But the final submission, okay, which is basically looking more like your tax return, your normal tax return that you will used to be seeing if you're already caught under this regime, then you have to submit that at the end of the tax year. Okay. Now, I'll come on to deadlines and filings shortly. But again, so if you break it down, we are going from 1 tax return submission to now 5 submissions, 4 quarterlies and 1 final submission. Okay, which is basically your tax return. Okay. I can see some questions. I will come back to some of those shortly because I should be able to answer them as I go through. So let's look at these quarters and let's start putting dates to it, all right? Because this helps bring it all alive. Now, by default, because the tax year runs from the 6th of April to the following 5th of April, all right, the default is that you will be operating under what the HMRC call tax quarters. Okay, so you can see on screen there that the first tax quarter from next year is going to run from the 6th of April 2026 to the 5th of July 2026. All right. And then basically you then have 1 month, you can see there in 2 days, to file that first quarter submission. Okay, so they do give you a decent amount of time to file it. You get 1 month and 2 days. Okay, so the filing deadline for your quarterly submissions is always going to be, the 7th of the month following. Okay, so however, we appreciate that in business, a lot of you may be working up to 31st of March year ends, nice rounded in the calendar months, and it makes it easier. Not a problem. You can make an election to opt for calendar quarterly periods. So it would run from the 1st of April 2026 through to the 30th of June. But you will note that the filing deadline is still the 7th of August. All right. The filing deadlines do not change. Okay. So that is basically your year laid out for you on screen, okay, whichever option you choose. Tax quarterly for default. If you want to do calendar, you do have to actually make an election to choose the calendar quarters, Okay, so if that's what you want to do, make sure you get that election made. I'll talk about that shortly. Okay. So, when do you actually pay your tax? So, at the moment, all we've been talking about is what you're submitting and when you're submitting it by. Okay. All right. So, the next massive question is, well, okay, we've talked about that, but the important thing is I'm going to have tax to pay. When do I pay it? Is that changing? The wonderful answer is at the moment, it is not. It is staying exactly the same. So, what I mean by that is obviously as we talked about in the quarterly submittings, you are only submitting income and expenditures. There's no adjustments. There's no what I call accountancy related adjustments being made. There's no other income from other sources, interest received, you've got a salary from ex-employment, whatever the rest of your scenarios are. We haven't touched that because that only gets wrapped up in that final tax return, that final submission, which is your tax return. Okay. And what that does is that final tax return brings down all of the information from HMRC that you've submitted up to them through your quarterly reporting. It brings it in. You then obviously add in all your other incomes from other sources. You make any final year end adjustments, things like that, because there's always a few timing differences and things like that around year ends, etc. So you'll make all those adjustments. And again, that final submission has to be in, and therefore your bill has to be paid by the following 31st of January of the tax year end. So that deadline has not changed. Okay, so although if you brought into MTD from April 2026, okay, right through to following March 27, you'll do your final submission and pay your tax bill on or before 31st January 2028. Okay, so you still get time. Okay, but the crucial thing that you can see on screen is when you do submit each of your quarter's submissions, your quarterly submissions, your accountant, your software, which I'll come on to, will give you a tax estimate based on those figures. So the idea is you will start to have an idea of what your liability is looking like. It's not perfect. All right, there will be changes. It will not marry up completely, but it's a good guide. So the government is hoping this will help people plan for the cash outlay of paying their tax bill. Okay. But like I said, I cannot stress this enough. Don't 100% rely on it because it's not going to be perfect, but it will be a decent guide as to what your liability could look like. Okay. But yes, I've just quickly, because I've sent it up, quick questions just before we move on. Quarterly reporting can be done, with anything. You can do it by yourself, and I'll talk about that because software can help you. I would encourage you to use an accountant. It will just make your life easier, but either or, you or your accountant can do this. Yes, two separate submissions if you are self-employed and a landlord. Yes, it doesn't matter the combination. So if you've got a property business and you've got two self-employed sole trade jobs, self-trade businesses, I can't get my words out. So let's say you've got two of those and you're a landlord, you will have to do 3 submissions every quarter. Okay, there has to be a separate one for each. Okay, now don't get me wrong, you don't have to necessarily do a separate submission for each property because chances are they'll be part of the same business. All right, if that kind of makes sense. Okay, so let's look at the downside and just being conscious that there are consequences if we're not doing what we should be doing and following the rules. They've tried to make it a little bit more lenient because again, you're going to have there's a higher chance that you could potentially miss something and fall within the realms of penalty because we are going from 1 submission to now 5. Okay, so what the government has done is they've come up with a point-based filing system. So what that means is you will get a point on your record with HMRC per late quarterly submission. okay, or annual tax return that is submitted late. If you reach 4 points, you will incur a £200 penalty. This is just for being late. Okay, we're not talking about unpaid in tax or anything like that. This is just for filing late. Okay, and points will only reset to 0 if you file on time over the next 12 months and have filed everything needed in the last 24. Okay, so you do have to be careful, okay, because you could suddenly then, if you've hit it, okay, you could be getting £200 if you keep them being late. Okay, late payment fines are still around, you know, they've never gone anywhere. But just to recap, they are currently going to be 3% of the tax outstanding 15 days after the due date. Days 16 to 30, you will have to pay another payment equal to 3% of the amount due at that point that is being charged. And beyond that, a further penalty is charged at a rate of 10% per year for every day tax is unpaid after day 30, plus interest. All right. Very scary place to be, people. I do not want you going down this route of paying HMRC any more money than your actual tax liability. So please make sure you are paying things on time. Now, it's a good point to note that if for whatever reason you do get yourself in a bit of a pickle and you don't think you can pay your tax bill, the key is to talk to HMRC early. All right, if you talk to them early, you could potentially go on what they call a time to pay arrangement. Okay, there will still be potentially a bit of interest and a consequence to it, but it'll be a lot better than this scenario that you can see on screen. All right, we want to keep these payments to a minimum. So again, how to avoid these? Submit on time, pay your tax on time. Okay, speak to HMRC if you've got any issues with payment. And for those of you, and again, this is why accountants are worth their weight in gold, they can help you with all of this. They will remind you, they will make sure they're helping you plan your cash flow so you have got the money to pay your bills, and they will also speak to HMRC on your behalf if there is something going on. All right, so they really can be of a massive assistance to you on top of helping you with the actual work and the compliance side. All right, you guys don't need the headaches, believe me. So how are we going to do all this? Now, wonderfully, again, clues in the title, making tax digital. So there are loads and loads, I promise you loads of digital tools out there that can help you with MTD. Now, let me caveat that because we all know there are hundreds upon hundreds of softwares out there, bookkeeping softwares that you can use in all different degrees and levels, but not every software is MTD compliant. Okay, so be very clear on that. HMRC, if you Google it, HMRC have a list of all their MTD compliant software on their website. Look it up. If you're looking at any type of software out there, make sure you find one that's on that list. If it's not, you're still going to be stuck. Okay, so please find something that is MTD compliant. Now, here at Lovely Tax Assist, we work with a select few partners that we know and we trust. Okay, and again, they vary in degree on how they help. So, just as an example, a lot of people have probably heard of QuickBooks, Xero, maybe not quite as well known, but still out there, Dext. And then lastly, again, maybe not as well known, Hammock. So QuickBooks and Xero, they are what I call your traditional cloud-based bookkeeping products, all right? They vary in price based on the package that you need, but some of the key features of those two products are they have live bank feeds, which mean that if you've got a dedicated business bank account, okay, set up, it's a fabulous bit of software to use because you can link your business bank account up. Now, it's very safe and very secure. You can't suddenly make payments through your software, but what it does is it pulls out the transactions that have happened and it will start to sort them out for you. So actually, if you can get it set up properly, it can do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. All right, and make it really seamless so that you stay on top of the things ready for your first quarterly update, which is amazing. All right, now for those of you that maybe don't have a dedicated business bank account, it might just go through a personal account, something like that. I would always encourage you to set up a business bank account just because it will make your life easier in the long run. But if you haven't, it's not a problem. That's where a product like Dext can come into its own. Because what you do is you take photographs of all your receipts and expenses, and it will download and pull off that core information and start to build this income and expenditure picture in the background. And again, can then be directly submitted to HMRC under the quarterly submissions. All right, so it's a much easier way to do it because again, it doesn't require too much input. I appreciate we've all got different technical capabilities. I myself am very much, if it doesn't work, I turn it off and turn it on again and hope for the best, if I'm honest. So we all have our different levels and we need to find a product that works with you. And Hammock is a very different to those other products. Hammock is specifically designed for landlords. Okay, so for those of you that have got property, it's a very good product, especially if you've got multiple properties. Okay, because on top of doing all the bookkeeping and the ins and the outs, it's also got features like helping you manage, rental agreements, lease agreements, what's happening, who's coming to end of tenancy, all these different wonderful features. So it can really help you manage your properties as well as help you comply with MTD. All right, so we've got all these different bits of kit, and one of the good things we do at Tax Assist is not only can we help onboard you on these products, we can help set them up and tailor them to you. We will also give you hands-on dedicated training on how to use these products, all right? Because at the end of the day, we're only as good as what we put into these products. So we need to make sure we know what we're doing, okay? And then also what they'll do is when things go a little bit wrong and you need a bit of help and guidance, they are there at the end of a phone, or you can walk in the shop off the high street, go have a chat with them, and they will correct any little mistakes, get you back on track, and make sure you're happy with what you need to do going forward. So, your local accountant can play a massive part in this process as well. But equally, we will tailor the service we deliver with you. If you want to do more of the software stuff, you're happy doing that, and then we will just be that peace of mind, that checker at the end before you submit. We can do that. And obviously that will affect the cost and the price that you pay the accountant. Equally, if you don't want the hassle, guys, and this MTD, you're just like, you know what, I know I've got to do it, but I don't want to do it. Pay your accountant. They will do it all for you. They will explain what you're paying for, what that includes, and they will do it all for you. Hassle-free, not a problem. You will just have to send in your information. They will sort the rest out for you. Okay, so we've got all these different levels of service that we can provide you because we appreciate everyone wants something different and everyone's got a different price point. All right, so we want to be as open and transparent as possible. Okay, so we very much make sure that through all these different mediums, we are supporting you with this use of new software because we appreciate not all of you will have been exposed to this type of software. Okay, so when it comes to these softwares, I've kind of already touched on it really. Obviously, when you're looking at things for you, if you are doing this by yourself, okay, and you're not going to your local accountant to help you find the right software, then there's things that you need to be mindful of. One, make sure it's MTD compliant, which I said earlier. If you do have multiple sources of income, make sure it can handle it. Okay, and if you do have things like joint property income, again, make sure the software can handle it. Now, funnily enough, going back to Hammock, it can handle joint. Okay, and do you have a dedicated business bank account? Because that will help you in product like QuickBooks and Xero. But then if you haven't, then actually that might be a bit too much for what you need, and Dext might be the better solution for you. Now, obviously, I'm just referring to the product suite that we use here at Tax Assist. There are hundreds of other products out there, so do go away and have a look. But like I said, make sure it is MTD compliant. Okay, and then lastly, have a play with these softwares. Does it feel easy to use? Does it feel intuitive? Okay, is there help, support, and guidance available should you get a bit stuck or should you need a bit of a push in the right direction? Okay, because all of that forms part of the package. No one wants to start using a product and then be like, I'm completely stuck. What do I turn to? And there's no help, there's no support, and you try phone a number and no one answers. All right, that's just going to stress you out even more. Okay, so do your research now, because again, it will pay off in the long run. Okay, so I just want to use the next couple of slides because there's quite a lot of dates to remember over the next year, is just to point out, all the different dates and deadlines you're going to have to consider. Okay, so come the 5th of April 2026, if you are affected by MTD because you meet that combined threshold of over £50,000, okay, you are going to suddenly have to start thinking about MTD. But that day also signifies the end of the 25-26 tax year. And because obviously MTD is only kicking in the 26-27 tax year, although you'll start reporting for 26-27, you will still have, under the old mechanism, 9 months from the 5th of April to the 31st of January 2027 to fill in and file your normal self-assessment tax return and pay your tax bill. All right, so this is where it gets a bit weird, because next year you're going to see an overlap if you're suddenly brought into MTD. But also each quarter in that next tax year, you are going to be submitting quarterly. So you can see on screen, your first quarter will end, if we go off the tax quarters, the end the 5th of July. You will then submit that by the 7th of August 2026. Your next quarter, 6th of July to the 5th of October 26, has to be filed by the 7th of November. Then you've got your third quarter, 6th of October to the 5th of January 27 is your third quarter to be filed. But actually that doesn't have to be filed till the 7th of Feb. The deadline you've got just before that is the 31st of January, which is when you have to file and pay your tax bill for the 25-26 tax return. All right. I can appreciate this is confusing as anything. So take a minute to just absorb that. Okay. I believe we will be sharing a recording of these slides on our website afterwards, so you will be able to look back on these. And then just to wrap up, the last quarter that you'll need to submit will run from the 6th of January to the 5th of April 27. So that's the fourth quarter. Fourth submission will be due by the 7th of May. But also that will be the end of that tax year, the 26-27 tax year. And then you have until 31st of January 2028 to file that final tax return, that final submission, and also to pay your tax bill. Okay, so just be mindful of those dates. So as you can tell, payments are not changing. MTD is only looking at the filing requirements. Okay, it is not touching payments when they're due and deadlines at the moment. Because you will know what happens with HMRC. Things will evolve over time. So who knows what the future holds? Wouldn't surprise me if they come in and potentially had to start making, estimated pay tax amounts on account every quarter with the submissions. I don't know. All right. But it wouldn't surprise me if that come in a few years down the line. But they very much need to get this system up and running first. So for now, it's just filing. Okay. So just before I go in and start looking at some of the questions, I'm very conscious that it is a big change. And if you have been used to doing your own tax return, this is quite daunting. You're potentially going to have to use software you've never used before. You're going to have to file a lot more frequently. There are consequences if you don't file on time, okay, and you get things a bit wrong potentially. So make sure you arm yourself with knowledge, okay? So using an accountant, and obviously I can absolutely vouch for TaxAssist Accountants. I know I work here, so I'm biased. I get that. But I honestly wouldn't say it if I didn't believe it. And the network of accountants that we have under TaxAssist are phenomenal at ensuring that they look after their clients. They are ahead of the curve when it comes to MTD, and they want to help. All right. They're not just looking to churn things out. They want to tailor their service to you and what you need out of your accountant. All right. If you want to do more and do more of the software side of things and you just want them for peace of mind, great. That's what they'll do. If you want them to literally do everything for you so you don't worry about anything and you don't have to lift a finger, not a problem at all. They can do that too. And anything in between. All right. So I would encourage you, we have local TaxAssist accountants throughout the UK, all the four corners, on local high streets near you. You can go on our website, taxassist.co.uk. We've got a number that you can phone up and we can put you through to your local tax assist accountant. You can start a web chat, fill in a form online, or Google your local tax assist accountant and they will come up on Google as well and you can contact them. So go speak to them, go have a chat. There's a free initial consultation. It's not there to give free advice, but it is there to talk to you about what your options are and how it could look for you, the pricing and how that would look and work so you can plan, but also help give you confidence that this could be a route that you might actually want to go down. Now, don't get me wrong, there are other accountants out there as well. So just do your research, okay? Chat to them, see what they can do for you, see what they're going to offer. There's nothing wrong with having a little shop around to find the best solution that fits you. But I will warn you, if you are going to do it yourself, you need to get prepared now. All right. If you're going to go and use an accountant to help you, go speak to them now and they will guide you through the rest. All right. And they will take a lot of the headache away from you. But if you are doing it yourself, do make sure you start planning. And what I mean by that is what you can see on screen. So you need to first plan. So you need to identify, are you going to be affected by MTD next year or in one of the later years? So you've got a bit longer. Prepare, what software are you going to use? So find a software, look at multiple software. What's the best fit for you? What price point is it at? Does it fit with what your needs are? Does it handle the processes you need it to handle? Are you going to use an accountant? Okay, and there's one thing that you can see on their register. Now, although you're going to be pulled into MTD, you still have to register for MTD, would you believe? Now, again, if you use an accountant, they can help and do that for you. Equally, if you're not, you will have to register to use the MTD service, even though you have to. I know it's bizarre, but this is HMRC for you. Okay, the hardest bit in yellow, middle of the screen, take action. You guys are going to have to do something about this, whether that is find an accountant to help you or start doing all these things we've just talked about. You are going to have to start this process now. You do not want to come to next year when you suddenly have to file your first quarter and be like, oh, I don't know what to do. I haven't got software. I've now got a quarter to backfill. You're going to be behind the curve. You will give yourself stress and headaches when you don't need it. And again, I don't want you guys to suffer penalties when you don't have to. There's no need. So please just start tackling this now. Start thinking about it now. If this is your first approach to it, watching this webinar, thumbs up. You're getting there. You've made a start. But now it's just to keep that momentum so that you start using a software sooner rather than later so that when MTD does come in, your life is made a lot simpler. Okay? Use the software now, understand it, and then consciously, there's always going to be little things that, little hiccups in the road, something throws you off with the software, you're not quite sure how to treat something, what to do, something might have gone a bit wrong with the first submission, we never know. All these different things. Seek help. Again, I would always push you to your local tax assist accountant, but you can go on our website. We try and keep all of our clients and potential clients updated with things, so use us as a resource as well. There are so many people out there trying to share what to do. HMRC, okay, I can't diss them all the time. They do actually provide some useful updates and guidance, okay, so keep an eye on their websites for things that are happening. And again, get out and about in your local communities and areas. There are loads of other businesses that are suddenly going to be affected by this. Did you know that actually over the next couple of years, MTD is going to affect over 1.5 million businesses at least? All right. And that's just in the next couple of years. All right. So there's a lot of people, more than you realise, that are suddenly going to be affected by this. Okay. Now, the one thing that I just want to also touch on, because I know I have focused on just MTD for income tax. Okay. Now, some of you, if you are running businesses, may already be looking at making tax digital for VAT. Now, that system has already been in place for a few years, okay? So if that's the case, you still have to submit your information as normal under MTD for VAT, but you're also, if it's a sole trade business, going to have to submit your income and expenses under MTD for income tax. All right. So it is just worth bearing that in mind, okay? Now, again, that potentially could get a little bit more complicated, but hopefully if you're already doing it under MTD for VAT, you should already be hopefully using a software, All right, so it should make your life a lot easier. All right, but right, I am very conscious of time because I am due to literally wrap up in 1 minute. Unfortunately, you can tell I can talk for England, so I need to. So very quickly, what can you expect from us in this whole digital journey and getting you ready for MTD? Is yes, we help on board. We help you pick the right software. We help you on board the software, set it up for you, set the rules up, tailor it to you. Obviously, we can ensure that the software and us keeping all your digital record, keeping in the way that they need to help you with whatever mechanism or process how you want to comply with MTD. We can do the quarterly submissions for you. Obviously, you can do them yourself, and we just do the year-end submission as an example for peace of mind. The last tax return, again, you can do it, we can do it. And then again, the benefits of us if we are always on hand to help you at any given moment throughout the year. All right, but thank you very much, guys. You're welcome to leave when ready. I'm now going to turn my camera off and sort of end the session. I can see lots of you saying thank you. It is appreciated. I hope it was useful. But yeah, have a lovely rest of your day and thank you again. And I'll see you all later.